Hi, everybody. I'm Mike. This is a bunch of Guns and Gear review, The Right of the People, where we use the first to defend the second every Friday night at 7 p.m. Eastern. So uncover your keyboards and fire up your fingers. Time to join the conversation.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the show. It is Friday, March 1st, 2019, and you are listening to The Right of the People. Yes, Tactical Pickle out there says time for a dumpster fire. That's funny because I just made the same joke before I started. You know, Night Strike's dumpster fire still smoldering, but I'm going to go ahead and light mine anyway. So, yeah, great minds think alike, right? I want to say thank you to everybody who stopped by and say welcome to anyone new watching the show. I see Wild Bill out there. That's a new one to me, but I hope you enjoy what you're about to hear. Who else we got out there? Let's see. The poor conservative, Arlene Alvarez, Kingpin, who's also on the panel. The Tactical Pickle himself, as I mentioned already. The Gun Snob, how's it going? Glad to see that. Well, there's at least 3 people here watching anyway, right? So, how you doing, sir?
I'm sorry, did you say me?
Yep, you'd be the Kingpin, right?
Yeah, it cut out for just a second. I didn't hear which name you. I didn't know if you said me or Squid, but I'm doing good, man. And glad it's Friday, even though I got to work pretty much all weekend anyway. But I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to a good conversation.
Oh, yes, me too. It usually is a good one. Squibload is otherwise occupied saving the world from Terminators right now in the factory. He'll be hopping in as time permits. Look like we got a couple more people showing up over on the YouTube side. We got Lead Life and Jason Stewart in the house. Welcome. Let's see if there's anybody over on Gun Channels once I hit the refresh button, other than the Kingpin. Nope, nobody else over there. So, all right. Well, the big topic today is something that I'm sure has been talked to death. And, anyone who watched the Ghosts live stream watched it happen in real time. So, I guess maybe they watched it happen on the replay like I did because I couldn't catch it in real time. I was sleeping. Working Midnights does that for you. But anyway, one thing I do want to let you guys know, no, we are not going to get into the whole Tac Daddy dumpster fire that came out of all that. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, go watch the replay of Ghosts show. I'm really not wanting to get into that. But anyway, back on topic. The House passed universal background checks this week. This is a piece by Matt Fuller in the Huffington Post. But before I get into that, I want to welcome Roll Call. How you doing, sir?
Sorry I'm late. I was talking to other people. I'm tardy. Put it on the tardy list.
That's okay. I know you were over at the Friday night strike. That's okay. Ghost, how you doing, sir?
Hey, what's going on? Thanks for having me.
Always, man. You're always welcome on my show. As a matter of fact, I was just directing people towards your show as to watch the live, the replay of the live broadcast of our first topic, the universal background check stuff. And I kind of warned everybody that we're not getting into the Tac Daddy situation.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not going down that rabbit hole tonight, fellas.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, that not my circus, not my monkeys, right?
Yeah, that was an interesting development. We'll just put it that way. But no, I think that for people, I got a bunch of emails a couple days after that, in the last couple of days, that said that they had never seen what happens on the floor of Congress. And And so, if for no other reason, people maybe get educated of what it takes to get a bill passed or the operational procedures of it. It's kind of eye opening. It's kind of a waste of time. Some of it is.
Yeah, you heard the old saying: two things you don't want to see how they're made is laws and sausage.
That's correct,
and it's pretty accurate. I would add cheese to that too. Having worked in a cheese factory, you don't want to see that either.
Yeah, I don't know if I love cheese, so I probably don't want to see that.
No, you do not. Absolutely. Anyhow, this piece by Matt Fuller in the Huffington Post, Washington. With Democrats back in control, the House passed the most significant piece of gun control legislation in more than 2 decades Wednesday. By a vote of 240 to 190, the House approved a bill that would require background checks on all gun sales in the United States. Currently, only licensed firearm dealers have to perform background checks, and unlicensed dealers, such as those at gun shows, can sell a gun without going through the National Instant Criminal Background Check System, NICS. 8 Republicans joined all but 2 Democrats in support of the bill, and the measure will now go to the Senate, where it faces an uncertain future. Pardon me a moment. That's the curse of drinking carbonated stuff before before a show. You're going to have to mute once in a while. Anyhow, let's see. 8 Republicans joined all but 2 Democrats in support of the bill, and the measure will now go to the Senate, where it faces an uncertain future. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, Republican, Kentucky, has not committed to bringing the bill up for a vote, and it likely doesn't have the 60 senators it needs to make it to a final vote. But the bill passing the House Wednesday marks a significant turn in its own right. The last gun control measure to pass the House was in 1994, the sweeping Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act that banned a number of semi-automatic weapons. What they're talking about is the dreaded assault weapons ban that sunsetted in 2004, thankfully. And though Democrats have repeatedly tried to pass other gun control measures when Republicans controlled the House, Democrats actually first introduced the legislation as a response to an attack on former Representative Gabby Giffords, Democrat, Arizona. They were unable to get up or down votes on a bill in recent years. But support in Congress has been mounting for stricter gun laws. While the new Democratic majority in the House made passage of the background checks bill possible, the 8 Republicans who supported the bill Wednesday show how the gun control issue isn't falling as nearly along partisan lines. I would hardly call 8 Republicans in support of it as bipartisan, but whatever. I mean, technically, I guess they're right. Representative Peter King, Republican, New York, actually co-sponsored the background checks bill with Democrat Mike Thompson of California, and public support for universal background checks has been growing with each mass shooting, according to who? A Quinnipiac poll conducted at the end of 2017 showed that 97% of respondents supported background checks for all gun buyers. I'd be interested to see the demographics of the people they asked about this, who actually took that poll.
Yeah, they still haven't made anything public on that poll. That's a question that everyone's had.
Yeah, I mean, did they ask everybody at an Antifa rally or something?
I can give you an answer to a poll question right now, and the answer is 0. How many people came out and were screaming about gun control when Steve Scalise got shot?
Yep, none. Zero zip
none.
nada. Steve Scalise, who's he? I mean, apparently he doesn't exist because they sure didn't let him testify, did they?
No, they cut the committee short. What they were trying to do is what they got done. They wanted to pass this on the anniversary of the Brady bill, so they cut everything short in committee.
Nice. Well, and we'll get back to that in a second. The symbolism of that, because we'll get back to that. Hold on. Let's see. Republicans still found ways to oppose the bill, saying the legislation wouldn't do much to address gun violence and was a broadside against Second Amendment rights. Representative Pete Stauber, Republican, Minnesota, a former police officer, recounted a story Wednesday about his getting shot in the head while off duty, and he spoke against the bill because he wanted to protect gun owner rights and said there were better ways to address gun violence. Another shooting victim, Minority Whip Steve Scalise, spoke in opposition Wednesday because of new regulations preventing someone from lending a gun to a friend. He said the provisions on lending a gun to a hunting partner were so confusing that you might have to also bring your attorney on the hunt. And another Republican, Bradley Byrne, said this legislation wouldn't prevent criminals from getting their hands on guns. True. Criminals are going to do what they already do, make illegal transfers of firearms, Byrne said, but he charged it would prevent, say, someone from letting their cousin borrow their gun. The legislation actually includes exemptions on background checks for family members and transfers for hunting, target shooting, and self-defense. Republicans were also successful in getting Democrats to adopt a motion to recommit that would notify the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency when immigrants without legal status attempt to purchase a gun. That motion was adopted 220 to 209, with 26 Democrats supporting the GOP motion. The language was quickly added, and the vote on the underlying bill still proceeded as scheduled. When this first piece of gun legislation wouldn't affect a significant number of firearms sales, Democrats looked at this bill as long-awaited action after so many mass shootings and moments of silence. Think about that for a second. They admit that this isn't going to affect any sales or anything. Let's see. As Majority Leader Steny Hoyer, Democrat Maryland, said on the floor Wednesday, the moments of silence have not worked. And while Democrats readily admitted more action would be needed, think about that for a second, too. While Democrats readily admitted more action would be needed, they lauded the legislation as something that would break the normal pattern in Congress. So, with that being said, they also did something else, too. They added a bill to extend waiting periods into this. House Democrats passed legislation that adds a 10-day extension to instant firearm background checks on Thursday, the day after they did the H.R. 8. This is, I think, 1112. Yeah, it's 1112. Marking the second piece of gun control legislation they've passed in as many days. On February 25th, Breitbart News reported that the legislation, H.R. 1112, adds a 10 business day extension for background checks that do not return conclusive results immediately. Once the 10 business day period is over, the would-be purchaser can petition to get his gun, and that process takes another 10 business days. The Democrats claim H.R. 1112 is needed to end the quote-unquote Charleston loophole, which I've never heard of until this, referring to the Emmanuel African and Methodist Episcopal Church shooting, but such a loophole was non-existent. That attacker did not get his gun because of a loophole, but because information was wrongly entered into a computer system at a county jail. The New York Times reported that law enforcement authorities in South Carolina said on Monday that a jail clerk there had made an error when entering information into a computer system about a February drug arrest of the man who was charged in the killing of 9 people in a historically black church in Charleston. Chris Cox, the executive director of the ILA, reacted to the passage of H.R. 1112, saying, "This legislation would not have prevented the Charleston murders, and even worse, the legislation is so poorly drafted, it would put law-abiding citizens who need a firearm for self-defense at risk by trapping them in an endless loop of delays," Cox continued. The NRA will continue to fight for the constitutional right of law-abiding Americans to defend themselves and their families without apology. So there you have it. The Democrats in the House went ahead and passed both of these gun control measures, and now it will be up to the Senate to decide whether to proceed forward with this. Ghost, what's your take on it? Do you have any thoughts, opinions, etc.? Can't hear you. All right. You there? All right. Yeah, I still can't hear you, Ghost. I'm not sure what's going on there. Kingpin, let's move on to you. Do you have any thoughts or opinions on this? What's your take?
My thoughts and opinions on the bill are it's trash, every word of it. And I really, really do not believe in any certain way that we can trust the Senate not to pass it. I'm keeping my fingers crossed and hoping, but if they pass it, I wouldn't be surprised whatsoever.
Roll call, what about you?
Well, all this does is make longer lines to get a firearm. If you guys don't know, since this bill enacts even borrowing of firearms, whatever FFL you go to, there's going to be a line of people, if they want to be law-abiding citizens, to line up for a background check. And this just slows down the process of FFLs. That's one of the things that they want to do. This should be a prime example that this is a restriction, this is an infringement, and not only that, this is really going to complicate my job and others like me that do that job. And to tell you the truth, Kingpin's right. What's even more disturbing than this bill being passed is the people laughing and saying Trump's going to save us and the Senate's going to save us. If you put your life and your constitutional rights in the hands of a politician, you are an idiot. Just go back and see what Trump said. Go back and see. It's just as easy as Democrats to flip when they wanted to take their name off this bill than it is the Republicans to put their name on it during election years. So the people that are laughing about this and saying, oh, don't worry, Trump's going to veto, all they have to do is give that man money for something that he wants, and he will sign this, and he won't hesitate. And his handlers are another reason why you should be worried, because they told him to do this stuff with bump stocks. He says take away due process, take the guns and due process later. I mean, if you think that this is going to just die off, it's not. And this is the tip of the iceberg of what's coming next. So be on your toes and look for long lines at your FFL.
One of the other things that I'm concerned about, and this is just something that's been rolling through my mind. I don't know if it's going to happen, if it can happen or what, but living in a state like Maryland, these things pop into my head. They pass it. What's to stop Maryland from just saying, okay, well, the federal government said we're going to extend it to 10 days. And then, well, we're just going to say, look, if you don't get an answer back in 10 days, you're denied. I don't know that can happen. I don't know the legalities behind it, but I just feel like a state like mine, New York, California, would just say if it doesn't come back in the 10 days allotted, you're consider yourself denied.
Hey, Ro, here's something you should know the answer to. How long is that initial background check good for?
It depends on certain places. My place, we do not do the Brady law. It's a mandatory 30-day wait until we hear back from NICS. So say you fill out your 4473 and we only submit your information like your height, your weight, and who you are to there. If we don't get immediate response, you get delayed. You have 30 days after until we hear a response. We will not release the gun until we hear a response from NICS. And if we don't hear a response from NICS, you have to come back in and fill out paperwork. And if you get delayed again, you have to wait 30 days.
And that's it. That delay, if that initial 4473 is only good for 30 days. And now under this new bill, let's say that you try to buy, you take advantage of a Black Friday sale. And then you're waiting through the weekends and the holidays and whatnot, and they take it out. So, 10 business days, that could be 18, 20 regular days. Let's say it comes back a deny. Then you have the appeal, which will take up to 10 more business days. Well, by the time that's over, you're past the 30-day limit on the 4473, and you got to start all over again, where you could go right back into the same loop.
Exactly. And if I've had people come to me and say, look, I got a restraining order against so-and-so, so I need to get a gun, to protect myself and my family. Well, when you enact this law and they're going to add an addition, if we even did the Brady law, then you're going to add additional 10 days that they have to wait. By the way,
I think it's asinine that your company has that policy.
Well, I know, but I mean,
you ain't got nothing to do with it. I know. It's just you got to do what you got to do.
And I'll tell you, the only reason why they enacted that is because if you do that Brady law and it comes back and this guy's not supposed to have a gun, it's the FFL's responsibility to call the ATF call the FBI, and they have to go track that gun down. And then that gun has to get picked up by them. Then it's going to get processed. And I don't think it comes back. It doesn't come back to the FFL. That gun gets taken away and it's confiscated. I mean, they don't lose the money for the purchase of the gun, but yet it's the FFL's responsibility. And that's one way of them getting around that responsibility for us to have to track down the whoever the ATF agent is in our area, tell them to go pick up this gun. And lo and behold, the gun is gone. The people have like jumped state or whatever, and it just creates a mess for the FFL itself. Hey, if you get delayed, go get a U-pin. It states right there that you can go get a U-pin. I don't know how many times I tell people, countless numbers of times, you get delayed all the time, go get a U-pin. It's worth it. I've seen people come in there and get a U-pin, and boom, they get a proceed.
Well,
So
what is a U-pin? Because I get denied every time I buy a new rifle.
Handgun. You get delayed?
Yeah, delayed. That's what I meant to say. Handgun's different because Maryland's got a mandatory 8 days. But for rifles, you can walk in and walk out if you pass the instant background check. But I always get a delay, and it always takes 7 days. So what is a U-pin?
It's a unique personal identification number. Only you get that number. No one else has that number. That number is tied to your name. And if you're a legal, law-abiding citizen, then that skips your delay.
Hey, Ro, I got a question about the delays and denies for people who they shouldn't get the delay. You know, they're not criminals, but they get the delay, deny. Do these people give their social security number and they still get a delay and deny?
Yep.
Wow. Okay.
So, I mean, I don't know how. The only way I know how to get around that, your delay, if you keep on getting delayed and you don't have any criminal record, is to go get a U-pin. I don't know how much it costs. I've never looked into it. Maybe I should look into it because that would answer a lot of questions that I get at the counter. But you should look into it and get it because it'll save you time on getting delayed. Whether it'll work in Maryland or not, I don't know. You have to look on your 4473 and if it lets you have a U-pin, because on our 4473s here in Indiana, there's a little box that says put in your U-pin number, and that number is tied to your name. So when they go and research who you are and your background, that will pop up because it's given by the FBI. That will automatically pop up, and they'll be like, okay, he's got a U-pin number, so he's already good to go.
If I were getting delayed, I would absolutely do that. Hey, Ghost, are you back with us here?
I don't know. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Good.
Oh, okay. I don't know. I restarted, I guess. I don't know.
So what's your take on this?
I mean, to play devil's advocate, just because I love the discussion, I think everyone knows that I think it's a crap law or crap bill. But for discussion purposes, I want to kind of touch on what Ro was saying. And, there are a lot of people that do, and to a certain extent, I'm one of those, that don't think this has a chance at passing the Senate or Trump signing this. But we did see 8 Republicans on the House side flip. There were 5 that co-sponsored it, which means there were 3 additional that did flip. And you can sit there and say it's different numbers, but if we have 8 senators flip, it's a different ball game, folks. It's an absolute different ball game. That Senate cushion that we have is gone. Now, what I will say about this is I think that the biggest problem that I have with the whole thing is they know, and they even said, and I think even someone, maybe even you or someone even acknowledged the fact that the Democrats have said publicly that this is not going to change much. So the problem that I'm having is they're playing, I don't even know if it's 3D chess, but they're playing chess. I'm going to call it Chinese checkers. They're playing Chinese checkers with the Second Amendment to where they can go and set up their campaigns for 2020. Make no mistake, this is all this is. This is getting in front of a camera and their constituents saying, we're serious about gun control. The vast majority of Americans are not going to look in to see what this bill really is. They're just going to see, hey, my congressman voted on gun control, so he's doing something or she's doing something. So the fact that they're playing games with our rights just to get a campaign started is really even more really frustrating.
Dude, that is so awesome that you said that, because that's exactly where I was going to go with this.
I'm sorry.
No, it's great, man. It's great. You know, I've watched this thing play out, and I personally don't think there's any chance in hell it's going to get past the Senate. I don't think they're going to get 60 senators to vote for it. I don't even know if it's going to get a hearing, a committee hearing, let alone a floor vote in the Senate.
Yeah.
And even so, I really don't know that Trump would sign it. But then again, I don't know that he wouldn't. So I certainly would put any of
a
my eggs in
stranger
that
wild
basket.
card than the Senate to me. Is I have more faith in the Senate than I do Trump, because I think Trump is a wild card.
Yeah.
I think Trump will
I think he just doesn't care.
Yeah, and more importantly, I think that Trump would give away this bill to get his wall built, and that's what scares me.
Yes.
But hopefully, you know, and I think Squib or Roe was talking about earlier about this could, if done a weird way, there is an ongoing loophole of maybe Twilight Zone scenario of it continuously restarting and someone can never get a gun. Let's hope that there is a lawyer out there that takes this to the Supreme Court should it get that far, because that is an absolute infringement of our rights.
Wall aside, the NRA has Trump's ear. They're the big dog in the fight. They got the starchy old white guys that look like politicians and live like politicians, that speak the same language as the politicians. So when Bruce Wayne LaPierre talks to Trump, Trump listens. If he went to him and said, "Don't sign this," and the Trump goes, "I'm not signing this," and then he, you know, gets on NRA TV and YouTube and American Rifleman and everything, goes, see, we told Trump not to sign it. We're fighting for you. That would be probably the best move the NRA could make to get its numbers back up, as all these members keep jumping ship. If you want to wrong a right with your members, do this and show that, hey, look, we've stepped in it here or there, or we've played 3D chess, or any of the, you know, I'm not going to get into the whole, because my point of view on it would tick off a lot of people. But anyhow, the whole point is it would do a lot of damage control. And right now they need numbers, because when they go to a congressman with money, that's great. But when they can go with proof of members, these are votes, especially, you know, in that congressman's state or whatever. If they don't have enough numbers, he's going to, you know, it'd be like, whatever, you can't get me votes. So they need to get their membership back up. And this would be a good way to fix that.
The big problem that we're having across the country with these background check laws is people really believe they work. Like there's people that truly believe that the 500 background check laws that we have now, if we add 500 more, it'll make it that much safer.
Well, there's people that believe they never landed on the moon too, and you can see that with a telescope.
Right. And there's people that believe, like these senators and these congressmen, they've got the statistics that say that it's bogus, that this stuff doesn't work. This is not going to happen. None of the laws you passed last year, the year before, the year before, the year before, none of those had any positive effect. And they still keep doing it.
You know, as I've said before, matter of fact, I left a comment on Ghost's show video about this, that, you know, this is never about safety. It's never about guns. It's never about crime. It's never about saving lives. It's all about placing yet another hurdle in between citizens and the exercise of their rights, and B, setting the stage for universal registration, because we all know that if this bill passes, if it gets a hearing in committee, and then if it gets passed through committee to a floor, and then if it gets passes the vote on the floor of the Senate, and then through the reconciliation process between the House and the Senate, everything goes through and it's already goes on Trump's desk and he signs it and it becomes law, this is going to be one of the most widely disobeyed laws in the history of laws. People are going to absolutely ignore it because it's unenforceable. Because they, in most places, or many places anyway, and I know here in Ohio, they don't know what you have. They don't know. There's not registration. And the only way this background check law could actually be a background check law and have anything that resembles working at all would be if there were registration. So, the next time they get a
Let's not give them
Democratic
any
House,
ideas.
Senate, and president, that's what they will do. And as far as giving them ideas, this is already their plan. They keep saying this is just the first step. But I also believe that you are absolutely correct, and that they know that this is going to go anywhere. They know it's dead, but they're setting up their campaigns. That's it. They're setting up their campaigns. If it passes, hey, great. That's just added bonus. But the main purpose is to set up their campaigns for 2020.
Well, and that's another problem that we have with the bloated, corrupt government is there's non-stop campaigning. There's never a point in time in our lives when politicians aren't calling us, emailing us, sending us something, putting ads on the radio and TV. They're constantly campaigning. When do they have time to do any actual work?
Yeah.
In the House, it's barely nothing. At least in the Senate, you get 6-year terms. So you've got 2 years that your first 2 years you're trying to get done what you promised in your campaign. The last 2 years you're running the new campaign. So at least you've got 2 years in the middle that you can actually maybe get some work done in the Senate. But in the House, everyone gets elected every 2 years. And so you've got 6 months, maybe, let's say, at the most. That's not very good.
Vanessa Kitty's asking, how can you ignore it and when you get caught? Well, anybody who breaks the law decides that, is thinking that they're not going to get caught, and if you're not going to get caught unless you do something stupid.
Well, no, hold up now. Let's throw a scenario out there. Universal registration across the board. Everybody has to go down with their guns to the police department and show them serial numbers, blah, 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 register them, then you take them back home. And some people go, I ain't going to do that. I ain't doing it. All right, and then they throw their gun in their pickup truck and they drive up north to go hunting and they get in an accident. And while the cop is there, he looks in the back of the truck, goes,
that would be how you, it would have to be an add-on charge to something else, or you get caught by accident.
Yeah, but at that point,
when you're talking about after registration,
at that point, you got a state trooper
universal
that
background checks being the most disobeyed law. No one's going to bother with that. If I have friends that I've known for 30 years, and if I want to sell one of them a gun, I'm going to sell one of them a gun because I know who they are. They're good people, and I don't have to worry about it. And there will be millions of other people who will do the same damn thing.
But if they commit a crime with that gun,
there's nothing they can do about it. They can't enforce that because they have no idea that what we have and what we don't have unless there is registration.
Right, but if you sell that to them and they commit a crime with it,
and
the gun comes back to the last person that it was before they figured out the 4473, you're the one that bought it new. And they go, you sold this to Joe Smith. Yeah, I did. Did you do a universal background check? No, screw that damn law.
Yeah.
I sold it.
You can say you sold it before March of 2019 to them.
That is true.
Yeah. Yep.
But
unless it's a new model, if it's 3 or 4 years down the road and it's a brand new model, then you're going to have
then it might be hard to get away with.
Right. Or the serial number shows that it was made after the law or whatever. So I mean, there are going to be some people that try to pull, if this happens or if it ever happens, right? That pull one over. And thing is, I don't think people understand. Now you're facing federal charges. That is much worse. Not that you want to be charged on any level, but federal charges are even worse.
Well, most important, it's a 1 year in jail and $100,000 fine. That's terrible in itself, but it makes you a felon, which means now you negate your gun rights. That's the ultimate. That's the ultimate downside of it. You know what I'm saying? Is if you become a felon, like you're saying, Squib, Now, not only have you screwed up, now you got to go spend a year in jail, $800,000 fine. But on top of that, when you get out, you're a felon. You can't have any guns anymore anyway. So you've really screwed up.
Well, there are FUDs out there to go, I got mine. I don't care. I don't care none about this law. I don't care. Okay, yeah. Apparently you have no children, and those children are never going to give you any grandchildren. Apparently you have no nieces and nephews. Apparently you have no neighbors, friends. Apparently there's nobody that's going to live after you that you give two craps forklift guys back, wouldn't you know it? You know, that you're going to give two craps about, not to mention, just for the sake of argument, let's just say that your 40-year-old shotgun breaks and you decide to get yourself a new shotgun. Oh, no, now you can't because they passed some law or whatever it is. I made a video today about the difference between being lazy and being tired. And there are those lazy people out there that hear about this legislation that I don't think they care because they got theirs, and it's not helping. It really isn't.
I suspect that should this become the law of the land, there are going to be a lot of people. There's going to be a lot of people planting gun gardens. You know, there's going to be a lot of firearms buried in tubes in their gardens, things that aren't on the books and aren't on any 4473.
I've talked to people who have been denied their right to buy firearms, whether it be rifle or a handgun here in Maryland. Excuse me. A week or two before they got their denial, they were all about it. Let's go to the range. Show me your new gun. Teach me how to take it apart. Tell me about this ammo. Let me see your new targets. And then as soon as they found out that they couldn't get guns, it was all of a sudden they didn't give a crap about my guns anymore.
Yep.
That fast. And I'm not even joking at all. It was instantaneously, my guns and their interest in guns went right down the toilet because now they're not allowed to get one. So it's not only the guys that have guns and don't care about what you have, it's people that have been denied for stupid reasons. The guys that I know that got denied, one of them had a weed charge when he was 21. He got caught with a little bag of weed. Another guy had excessive speeding tickets and didn't pay his fines and stuff like that. And, got into a bunch of whole traffic trouble. And bam, now they all instantly don't care about guns because they're not allowed to own them. So that part of our rights no longer matters to them.
Yeah, in the building I'm in right now, I am probably the only person in the building right now that could fill out a 4473 and pass the NICS check, who has the legal right to have one, buy one legally from an FFL, that sort of thing. But if anybody in here wanted to get one, they know where to get one on the street. So yeah, it goes to show that these laws don't do anything to stop what the government says they're trying to stop to protect us.
I'm going to point something out, and Vanessa Kitty mentions this in the chat out there. She says that in Connecticut, you must call into the state police and the background check for any sale. And so you basically, you're already mandated universal background checks. You must call into the police. No, you mustn't. How many criminals actually obey that and do that? How the bad guys don't call in and background check anything. This is the only thing this is going to do, again, is place a hurdle upon those who would be predisposed to obey it.
I think it should be available, though, if you want it. If you're doing a private sale to somebody you don't know, you should be able to use your cell phone app or call an 800 number and run their driver's license number. And all it's going to give you is a proceed or deny.
You should.
A delay doesn't mean anything to you on a private sale.
It's not going to tell you why.
It's not going to tell you anything. You don't have to have their social security number. It's not that you required, but if you wanted to, it's your option, your due diligence. If you wanted to, as a tax-paying, law-abiding citizen, the government should provide that service for free. And there's no invasion of privacy. You don't need to see the guy's pay stub. You don't need to see his social security number. You don't need his fingerprints. It's just a simple phone call.
I ask when I'm going to sell a firearm, I ask to see a concealed handgun license. If I see a valid CHL, then I know that they're good to go.
It's called, we have it here in Indiana. It's called mycase.com. Go into mycase.com. You put in their name. It'll bring up what they've been, in trouble for. I've Googled myself on it because I had a little bit of trouble getting my lifetime permit for some reason. So I had to declare, oh yeah, this happened to me, 12 years ago. But just go to mycase.com. You can Google anybody and see what they're charged for.
But I want something with a little bit more anonymity. I don't want to know what they did. I just want a thumbs up or a thumbs down if I so choose to do this check. I don't think it should ever be a law that I should have to. But I don't, because people are going to be like, I don't want you to know what I did or didn't do.
Well, if you got to look at it this way, Squib, I've seen the Knicks check fail miserably and give out a proceed to someone that shouldn't have one. And when we looked them up, this told
you. Look at the dude, the Aurora shooter. Same thing with him.
I mean,
he got a point card when he shouldn't have.
The mycase.com, that will give you what the person's been arrested for. And if there's something that he's been arrested for, like, kidnapping, and false imprisonment of someone else, I mean, that should give you we're not going to sell this guy a gun, or I'm not going to sell my gun to him. I mean, that stuff gives you a lot of stuff. Doesn't mean that they've been convicted of, but even if they've done that stuff and been arrested for it, that should let you know, no, you better not sell this guy a gun because he's not a good sport.
Well, I don't think it should be required for a private sale, but I think that it should be available for free if you wanted to. And, like if you're selling to your brother or your son or something like that, you obviously don't need to do some goofy check. But if you're selling to somebody you've never met before, say at a gun show, or somebody that, you just started work or whatever, and they're interested in guns, or I don't know, your brother's, sister's, uncle's former roommate, whatever, and you don't know him from Adam, I think it would be a nice thing. But see, that's a common sense thing. And the government isn't interested in giving the citizens the option of policing themselves or using something that might be common sense. They want to control the whole thing, and it's just going to be a mess.
Well, and again, I mean, you just hit on really bottom line of the whole thing that I keep harping on all the time. Gun control is never about the gun. It's always about the control.
Well, how about when these these universal background checks go through and stuff? What's the likelihood that the FFLs are going to raise all their prices?
Exactly.
You have no choice now, so you have to go. So instead of spending, it's $60 on average around here. You can find it cheaper.
Holy crap!
It's 75 here, budget.
Yeah, if you go
15.
If you go to a private FFL, that's basically just a gun dealer, they can give you better discounts. The best price I've found, that's $40. Every gun store around here is either $65 or from $50 to $65. If you go to,
I pay $15 a transfer at my local, and then the next town over, 15. Yeah, $15 for a transfer.
So what's the likelihood that every FFL is going to jack up their prices because the demand?
I'm sure some places they will. Law of supply and demand.
And what I've not seen from this bill is the guns that you did get from a private sale, that stuff's not grandfathered in. So if we take Squib's scenario and you bought this gun in 95 from a private sale and you get pulled over and that's the gun you carry, and they're like, or you use it in self-defense, and they're like, well, did you do a background check on this? No. Well, I didn't see no grandfather clause on this bill that, you're clear if you bought guns from a time period until the bill was passed. So everybody that's bought private guns, I mean, what are you supposed to do? Go track down that person? With that person, God forbid, died. You can't get no signature for a bill of sale for those guns. And I ain't seen nothing about it being grandfathered in. So basically, it's just like bump stocks. It's just like everything else. They're making people, regular law-abiding citizens, felonies overnight. It's retarded. This bill sucks. It stinks. Poo-poo.
Well, and it's because they know there are going to be a lot of people who are going to disobey it, and they know that through dumb luck, like Squib was talking about, they're going to get caught. They want it to happen because they want you to turn into a felon so that they can strip you of your Second Amendment rights that way.
How would you like to be in a car accident while you're transporting a firearm under circumstances that would be lawful today? And you wake up in the hospital, and you're in a hospital bed, and the little thing's beeping and all that stuff. You go to raise your right arm, and you're handcuffed to the damn bed. Why? Because after they went through your vehicle that was flipped upside down and, you know, tossed your carcass in the ambulance, they found that you had an, air quote, unregistered rifle. I was like, yeah, I was on my way up north to go hunting. Well, you didn't, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's,
and there's going to be weird scenarios like that.
That's, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's scenarios like that that keep me honest, frankly, because, you know, my PPS 43, it would take nothing to convert that back to an open bolt full auto. It would take about 20 minutes, but I don't do it because I don't want to go to federal prison over a freaking gun.
More tales from the dark side, since everybody loves Maryland stories. I'm petrified of stepping on a crack on a sidewalk, because if I get in any type of trouble, if somebody's causing trouble, messing with somebody, and I get in a fight, I could lose my gun rights just that quick.
Yep.
You know, messing around in Maryland, they'll take your gun rights away from you pretty much anytime they want.
And all they're looking for is an excuse. That's all they need. Vandaliska says, because it'll break your mama's back. I sent you that email, Vandaliska. You should have a link now. Should. So I know that you wanted to hop in and add something to this. Meanwhile, while we're
well, you know what though, that might be a good thing for us to have on the show one day. If you can't jump in now, let's talk about the Australian experience. How they got it all crept in on them, and then they've had amnesty periods time and again. But as far as I know, there's still statistics out there that say there are a whole bunch of unregistered guns in the hands of private citizens in Australia, where they've, like you're saying, buried them in the backyard or whatever. Yep. And it'd be kind of interesting to see what's been going on there since, when was that? The late 80s, early 90s?
Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, I do not have to work tonight, so we can go as long as we want to continue to talk. So.
Don't you say that.
All right, until I pass out. I am only working on 2 hours of sleep today, so I might get a little loopy. Vandaliska, welcome. How you doing? Hello?
Jared, you're muted.
Looks like he was pulling an opposite of Porky Piggin.
Hello?
Now can you hear me?
There you go.
There he is.
I got mute and unmute mixed up.
So you
That's
had
what
something
happens
you
when
wanted
you're
to
down
add,
in the
sir?
southern hemisphere. You know, the southern hemisphere, everything changes. You know.
Oh, that's right. This is opposite.
Yeah.
Oh.
There were two things. Yeah. So there were two things that I put out in the chat, and then you guys have kind of covered, but you know, I just wanted to say again, the second one, which is kind of least important, but it seems more like a conspiracy theory type thing, is, which you've just touched on now, is whether or not this is a gun control kind of act, but it's really like a revenue generating scheme, because you think about all of those private sales that would now have to, pay money, which I assume there's tax in that money, to an FFL. Those numbers skyrocket once that goes through.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they have to pay taxes on that as income anyway. Yeah,
but how much more money that's generating for the government? Like, it seems to me that would be quite high. The other thing was just that the way that the gun laws here are in Australia, the hurdles that you have to jump through just to get a license, and then the hurdles that, like, it sounds very much like a permit to acquire that we have in Australia. What this would, with the people waiting 3 months only to be denied again and have to do the whole thing, it makes me feel as though it would be the same thing in Australia, whereas it's like a disincentive to want to purchase any kind of firearm.
Absolutely.
And I worry about that putting people off.
Oh, absolutely. I think that you've hit the nail right on the head. I guarantee that's why they do things the way they do them, where you live. And our gun grabbers here look to Australia as the kind of the template for the kind of things they want to do here. And
when they should be looking to New Zealand, who still have semi-automatics and suppressors freely available. Yes, you still have to get a license, but they're not as scared and hiding under the covers as the Australian government are, and they don't have mass shootings every day. Like, they seem to forget about New Zealand.
Well, that's good.
I gotta hop out of here, guys. I got something to do, but thanks for having me, Budget.
Hey, no problem, Ro. You're welcome anytime.
Enjoy my favorite part of the show. You guys should all know what that is. It's self-defense shout-outs. And I want to hear some hooping and hollering, because I'm going to watch this on replay when he starts that portion of the show.
Well, what I'm doing now is the full-length replays going to patrons and contributors on Gunstreamer, but I am separating out the self-defense shout-outs and throwing that out there as separate, so you'll be able to listen to just that.
That's fine with me, as long as I get to hear them. If there's any voting on this panel, I give my vote to Vandalistica, because he's a great guy, and I would like to see my kangaroo in the mail. So other than that, thank you guys for having me. Everybody subscribe to the guys on the panel, and have a great night.
Thank you. Thanks for coming by, man. I appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
All right. Let's see. WP is out there saying he'd love to have a lawyer agency that protects my rights against red flag laws like the USCCA. I'm not sure. Does the USCCA even get involved in that kind of thing? I know they do a lot of training, and they do, education stuff, and they do the carry insurance, but I don't know how much legislation they do.
I think he's talking about red flag law insurance. Just like they do carry insurance.
Gotcha.
We need to have some private companies out there doing red flag law insurance.
God, hey, you know what?
Could make some money.
You could make some money if you because I'd buy it. Hell, I'd do the carry insurance already. Like
I'd call Adam Kraut, but he don't have a license to practice in Michigan.
But then they would make some money. I know the Second Amendment Foundation fights for our rights constantly and tirelessly. They have 38 cases right now going. So that would be, they certainly walk the walk for us.
Here's the only thing that I worry about on red flag. Let's just call it red flag insurance. That's what we're going to call it. Let's just call it that. The only thing I'd be worried about that is if someone has access to a database that says these people have gotten red flag insurance, they are going to come back and say, why does this guy need red flag insurance? What's he nervous about? Maybe he's hiding something. Maybe he should be red flagged.
Same reason you have car insurance. Well, same reason you pick up uninsured motorist on your car insurance policy, because you never know what the other guy's going to do.
Yeah, but we never know what's going to happen on the other side if they sit there and say, there's people out there buying red flag insurance. Why? So that I worry about that. That's my little tinfoil hat there for you,
Yeah. But that would be a good idea to have red flag insurance in case someone popped one of these stupid red flag laws on you. You could then have an attorney on standby to fight that.
No, I agree.
That would be great, actually. All right, now moving on. Since we spent actually the entire hour on that, I certainly didn't intend to spend that much time on it, but that's okay. It was a great discussion.
Hey, it was an hour without anybody saying Benchmade, so it was great.
Now, see, you just jinxed that shit. You broke it. All right. In other news, this is a piece from A.W.R. Hawkins in Breitbart. Democrat Andrew Cuomo signs gun confiscation into law in New York. The law takes effect 180 days from the date of signing, which was Monday. Buffalo News reports that the law allows that family members, school administrators, and law enforcement officials can seek to get guns confiscated from people deemed by courts to be an extreme risk to themselves or others. Mitch McConnell blames North Carolina election fraud. Wait, no, I forgot to delete that when I copied this. Never mind Mitch McConnell. Instead, think about House Speaker Nancy Pelosi praised Cuomo and New York lawmakers for putting the confiscatory law into place. In a tweet, Pelosi said, American families deserve to see bold action to prevent gun violence. Thanks to New York Governor Cuomo and the New York State Legislature for leading the way by passing the red flag bill and providing an example of the common sense solutions that will save lives. On Monday, Cuomo said the confiscation law will save lives and doesn't infringe on anyone's rights. Yeah. Florida also has a red flag firearm confiscation law, and it did not prevent the August 26, 2018 Jacksonville landing shooting or the January 23, 2019 SunTrust attack that killed 5 in Sebring, Florida. Same with the California laws that did not prevent the November 7, 2018 Borderline Bar and Grill shooting. Illinois has a red flag firearm confiscation law too, and it didn't prevent the February 15, 2019 shooting at the Henry Pratt Company. So again, gun control laws do jack. And as we were just talking about, red flag insurance would be a good idea. So if anyone from the USCCA is listening, you might want to add that to your list of services. Moving on, some good news. 14 New Mexico counties adopt Second Amendment resolution. This is by Elise Kaplan and Julia Dedinger and Argan Duncan in the Journal. This is from Friday, February 22nd, 2019. As gun laws make their way through the state legislature, 14 county commissioners around the state, including those from Sandoval and Valencia counties, have passed resolutions declaring their county to be a Second Amendment sanctuary county. The sanctuary resolution says a commission supports its sheriff in any decisions not to enforce unconstitutional laws and not to use any county resources to enforce laws that infringe on the right to bear arms. It is likely to be passed in even more counties at meetings in the coming weeks. But even though its sheriff has thrown his support behind the movement, Bernalillo County doesn't appear likely to be one of them. I'll be very surprised if any commissioner proposes that type of resolution for Bernalillo County, said Commission Chair Maggie Hart-Stebbins. At one point or another, I believe all of us have expressed support for common sense gun safety legislation. Oh, it must be a more urban county. It is being considered in Santa Fe. I can only speak for myself, but I believe the commissioners all support what's being proposed in Santa Fe. Hart-Stebbins commented on the resolution after Bernalillo County Sheriff Manuel Gonzalez issued a statement Friday saying he confidently supports a Second Amendment sanctuary county. Ultimately, the decision will be made by their county commissioners, though. As your sheriff, I believe there are enough laws on the books to effectively deal with the unlawful possession and use of firearms by any kind of perpetrator, Gonzalez wrote. I will back any legislation that mandates a consistent, swift, and appropriate penalty for any illegal possession or use of a gun. I do not support, aid, or condone any effort or legislation that will infringe upon the rights of law-abiding citizens to bear arms. Gonzalez was not one of the 29 sheriffs who initially joined opposition to the firearm legislation. When you look at the 29 sheriffs that oppose it, they're all rural New Mexico sheriffs. The ones that stayed on the fence were Santa Fe County, which is heavily populated, and Doña Ana County, the same thing, and Bernalillo County, which is the heaviest populated county in the state.
No.
So it's all, again, it comes down to the culture war of urban versus rural. You know, you have the rural counties saying that our counties are going to be sanctuary counties and we're not going to enforce any of this asinine gun control legislation. And the urban counties saying, yes, give us gun control. We're good little sheep.
Doña Ana County is down in the southwest corner. That is one of the really nicer places in New Mexico to go visit. Wow, I'm really surprised.
You weren't thinking of moving there, were you?
Yeah, but well, whatever.
I think I'd cross that one off my list.
Yeah, well, you know, the way your story started out, I'm like, oh, New Mexico is still on the list. Crap, it's not.
New Mexico would be all right if you go to one of the rural counties.
Yeah, stay away from Santa Fe and Las Cruces and all those areas.
See, I like Las Cruces, and Las Cruces to me is rural. Albuquerque and Santa Fe are not rural, but they're. I mean, those are the two biggest cities there. Everything else there is rural to me. It's just, I mean, it's really sparsely populated. I mean, I realize it's not Wyoming or anything, but there's a lot of open land out there. It's really, really nice out there. The north end of the state, it's freezing cold. I ain't moving up there, but yeah, I think it might be the fact that so much of the state is rural.
Well, you know, if I were thinking of moving to New Mexico, I would certainly research which counties have these resolutions passed and which don't, and decide my where I was going to land accordingly. Seven Wonders asks a question going back to the previous topic. What are we going to do if all of these bills pass and or if the Dems control the entire government in 2020? Well, I've said it before and I will say it again. The most historically significant thing about Donald Trump being elected president was the fact that Hillary Clinton wasn't. And the fact that Hillary Clinton did not get Supreme Court picks. And the fact that so far, Donald Trump's Supreme Court picks have been pretty good ones. They've been pretty conservative. And most of them, well, the two of them that he made seem to be fairly solid on the gun rights issue, at least based upon their past rulings. I would anticipate that if he gets the opportunity to replace Ruth Bader Ginsburg, then he'll replace her with another justice cast in the same mold as the other two. And the Supreme Court would be our final recourse here. And they are, as we've talked about in previous shows, they are starting to accept Second Amendment cases again. So we'll have to see how things turn out in SCOTUS. I'm cautiously optimistic about that the Supreme Court is going to start ruling in favor of the Second Amendment. So let's see how that goes before we start. Because I know someone out there mentioned Civil War, but let's give the Supreme Court a chance until we start thinking about going to the trenches. You know,
I think
that's something we should all be trying to avoid.
I think he meant lock yourself in your basement with all your guns and watch Civil War on repeat.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting over history. You know, let's just say the last 30 years. It's interesting to me how the American people, you know, the checks and balances system is a really good system, and it's a good system because it seems to me over the history that the American people seem to make sure that very seldomly do all three branches really going to flirt towards one side or the other. And that's helpful because, you know, if you have a Republican Congress and a Republican president, but you have maybe a left-leaning Supreme Court, once again, one branch cannot just take care of everything. So it's interesting to me if you think about it. We had 8 years of Clinton. We had 8 years of Obama. But they weren't able to get much done. Yes, you had the 94 assault weapons, but it sunsetted in 2004. But hasn't ever been that one time of history, at least in the last 30 years, that all three could really kind of push whatever the hell they wanted to push. Because yes, you might have a Congress and an executive branch, but chances are the Supreme Court isn't, it's not there for elections. So there could be on there for 50 years. And so very seldom do you have one branch or all three branches really able to do it. So it's interesting to me. I must say, I'm kind of mumbling here. I'm sorry. But it is interesting over history of time. If you really look at it, there ever has been that one specific time in history where everything was aligned. Now, hopefully that doesn't happen anytime soon.
No, I hope there's never a time when everything's perfectly aligned and marching in lockstep. That would be disastrous.
Just like
we have to have opposition around, and otherwise, shit. The bad thing. Look at any nation where there hasn't been opposition throughout history. Bad things happen. I mean, look at the 30s and 40s if you have any doubt of that.
Well, our founding fathers thought it was important that we had a Second Amendment for a reason. They also set up the checks and balances and the term limits, or lack of term limits, or just the differences. Like you were talking about earlier, that senators are every 6 and representatives are every 2 and stuff like that. Everything kind of overlaps and works with that checks and balances system. They were thinking about stuff like this when they created it. And I know some things have been tweaked and done this and that over the centuries, but we're really blessed to live where we live.
Well, just think about, we all know that Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, and Benjamin Franklin, all of these mega people in our history, I don't think that people really sit back and really appreciate how brilliant these people were. We're talking 200 plus years ago, looking 200 to 300 years in the future. And for the most part, I'm not saying that all the time, but for the most part, pretty much being right on with understanding how world works and how people work and society works to build in certain situations in our Constitution and the Declaration of Independence when they were talking about what we wanted to be and where they visioned America to be 200 years down the line. People understand these were some brilliant, brilliant people.
I was kind of going to save this example for August, but I'm going to, because it really segues right into this right now. Our democracy is founded on 4 boxes: the soap box, the ballot box, the jury box, and the cartridge box. And it's that way for a reason. All you have to do, and they're out in the chat, they're talking about the Second Amendment being put in place for a reason. All you have to do is look up the Battle of Athens. What I'm talking about is shortly after World War II in Athens, Tennessee. It was run by a Democratic boss. That whole entire area was run by the Democratic machine in place with this one guy at the head. And, they would, the guys coming home from the war, they'd get hassled. They would get pulled over by the cops and fined and have to pay this fees and that fees. And, you couldn't get a job without the say-so of these people. There was tons of corruption and cronyism, and they basically ruled it as their own personal fiefdom. Well, the GIs returning home from the war got tired of this and decided that in the next election, they were going to run their own slate of candidates to get rid of this guy. Well, this political machine had the deputies seize the ballot boxes and take them to the jail. So the GIs, the faction that wanted to overturn the status quo, broke into the National Guard armory and seized weapons. They seized a bunch of rifles and a couple Thompson guns, and they had some dynamite and whatnot. And there was an all-night battle at the courthouse, at the jail, to get these ballots. They had first tried to send telegrams to the state and the federal government to get help. Nothing. No one would come help them. So they helped themselves. And they eventually blew a hole in the side of the jail, and the deputies surrendered, and they got the ballot boxes, and lo and behold, they had won the elections. It's Warsaw Patriot. It's the Battle of Athens. Look it up, man. It's really fascinating stuff, and it perfectly illustrates what we're talking about. The Second Amendment being in place to combat a tyrannical government. Granted, this was in a micro scale, but the same thing applies at the macro level. If worse comes to worse, well, this is exactly why the founders included it. Hopefully it never gets to that point. Hopefully the rule of law does not break down and deteriorate to the point where we've exhausted the soapbox, we've exhausted the ballot box, we've exhausted the jury box, and we're only left with the cartridge box. I hope that never comes, but if it ever does, well, that's why. So, all right, enough of that. Let's go ahead and move on to what is Roll Call's favoriteest, most wonderful segment of the show. For those of you who are new to the show or who have never stuck around to the end, this is called the Self-Defense Shoutouts. It is not where I am reveling in the death or injury of the bad guy. It is where I am reveling in the fact that the good guy had the means, method, and opportunity to prevent the bad guy from inflicting death or injury upon them. So to go ahead and start this off, this is from CBS 4 in Indianapolis, Indiana. Teen shot, killed during attempted robbery at East Side Pawn Shop. This is from February 27, 2019. A teenage suspect died after being shot at a pawn shop during an attempted robbery on the city's east side, police say. The Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department said officers were called to the shooting at an Easy Pawn and in the 6200 block of East Washington Street shortly before 4 p.m. Wednesday. When police arrived, they found a 15-year-old male suffering from multiple gunshot wounds. He was transported to Eskenazi Hospital in critical condition but died from his injuries. Police said the suspect was armed with a stolen handgun. What? You mean he didn't go through a background check to get that? On Thursday, the teen was identified as Jashawn Taylor. A store employee shot him, police said. According to Sergeant Jim Gillespie, there's no threat to public as a result of the shooting. Officers believe it was an isolated incident. The main thing is that we get the community's involvement here so that they can let us know if they heard anything, if they saw anything, so we don't let the situation get away from us. Well, it sounds like the situation's pretty well in hand there. Next up, this is from the KHOU from Galveston County, Texas. Online iPhone sale ends with deadly shooting in Galveston County. A man who police said just wanted to buy an iPhone ended up shooting and killing a would-be robber in rural Galveston County. The 38-year-old man answered to an ad on an OfferUp app for a late-model iPhone for approximately $500 in cash, the Galveston County Sheriff's Office said. The man agreed to meet the seller about 5 a.m. Tuesday in the 700 block of Lilly, a rural area northwest of Santa Fe, because one of the men said he had to go to work early, GCSO said. The 38-year-old man arrived at the spot and met with 17-year-old Joshua Wooten. The man said Wooten handed him an empty iPhone box and told detectives Wooten then tried to rob him. The man was armed and shot Wooten 3 times, according to detectives. Wooten was flown to a hospital where he was pronounced dead. GCSO said the detectives said the shooting appears to be in self-defense and the case will go before a grand jury. The man does have a license to carry permit, the detectives said. Detectives are warning anyone buying or selling items online should be aware of their surroundings and be cautious when dealing with strangers. And last but certainly not least, armed robber shot by Jacksonville store clerk by Katie Clement from KATV. This is in your state, Ghost. Man was taken to a hospital after he was shot while robbing a store in Jacksonville on Thursday. Jacksonville,
like
Arkansas.
45 minutes from me. Yeah.
I'm sorry?
It's like 45 minutes from me. 45 minutes to an hour, yeah.
A man was taken to the hospital after he was shot while robbing a store in Jacksonville on Thursday. Police say they were called out to the 1500 block of West Main Street just before 11:30 p.m. in regards to an armed robbery and gunshot victim. The store clerk told officers a black male entered the store sometime after 11 p.m. and placed a black and silver handgun on the counter, demanding all of the money. At some point during the robbery, the clerk retrieved a gun from behind the counter and fired a shot toward the robber, according to the report. Officials say the suspect was hit and transported to a local hospital for emergency medical treatment. An investigation is ongoing. So there you have it. 3 people who, despite the claims to the contrary, were able to defend themselves from the bad guys. And, you know, I wonder if the bad guys got their guns via background checks. I'm sure the 15-year-old didn't. I'm sure the 17-year-old didn't. I'm sure that probably this last gentleman didn't either. You know?
I know where they got their guns. The guy, Wayne LaPierre, snuck into their house and forced it into their hands at night, with blood dripping from his lips.
While Chris Cox watched and took pictures.
Oh, he was loading extra magazines. He was loading high-capacity
I was going to say he was loading high-capacity magazines, right?
High-capacity banana clips.
Well, and there you go, folks. You know, unfortunately for the bad guys, or, well, maybe fortunately, I don't know. Certainly, fortunately for the good guys, you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. That being said, let's go ahead and roll up the sidewalks and put up the awnings. It is, as always, I'm humbled and grateful that, I mean, shoot, we have 33 people sticking around to the end of this tonight. That's outstanding. I am humbled and pleased that you guys decided to spend an hour and a half almost listening to me blather on. So, you know, I thank you very much. Let me go ahead and go through the panel, give them their final words, plugs, whatever. Ghost, anything you'd like to leave us with tonight, sir?
No, just it's weekend. Get to the range. Try to get to be more proficient with your firearms. Take someone with you and show them the safe and proper way. Maybe you convince them that being a gun owner is not an evil thing. And while you're out there, take a camera and be part of the solution. Appreciate you having me on. Love the show.
Oh, no problem, man. I'm glad you can make it tonight. Kingpin, anything you'd like to leave us with, sir?
Yeah, I'll babble just a little bit. Make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Budget Guns and Gears Review. Check out his videos. Go check out Ghost Tactical's March Drill of the Month. And make sure you check out Orange You Glad It's Not the Closer. I'll be doing the grand prize redrawing for the 500 round sports shooters ammunition.
Squib, you done with the Terminators? Got the door locked and the trash out, sir?
Yeah, I got that stuff done, but yeah, I'll be working all the way up till time to clock out. I've been working while I was muted. Appreciate the invite. Appreciate you putting up with my work scenario and Mr. Forklift in the background.
No problem.
And I'll see everybody possibly later on Foul Territory, but definitely tomorrow morning on Caliber Corner on the Travis P11 channel.
There you have it, folks. And the Thunder from Down Under, Vandalistica Vlogs. How you doing, sir? And is there anything you would like to leave us with?
Yeah, well, thanks for the link. I appreciate any chance I can get to whinge about how terrible Australia is. I also want to say that gun control is very important. Always use 2 hands. Thanks.
All right. And again, as always, thank you to everybody out there in the chat, both on YouTube's and Gun Channels. By the way, if you are not a Gun Channels member, you should be. We are simulcast on Gun Channels. It is free. It is the water cooler of the Internet Second Amendment community. You can find someone to talk with and something to talk about 24/7, 365. As a reminder, I have started taking down the replay of this and making it of the right of the people and making it available to my patrons on Patreon and contributors over on Gunstreamer. So if you don't like Patreon, you can go ahead and check it out over on Gunstreamer. That way you can watch the full uncut replay. I will, however, post selected portions of this out on my channel for everybody, just, not the whole hour and 24 minutes tonight of it. So also like to encourage you guys to go ahead and visit my website, www.budgetgunsandgear.com. Up until now, I'd pretty much just parked my videos there on the blog posts and copied and pasted the descriptions and whatnot. But I've actually started writing full-length review articles for the videos. And as time permits, I'm going back and catching up on the backlog of ones that I've already done. And will in the future from this point on be including full-length written articles on everything else that I review. So keep checking it out over there. And if you're interested in that kind of thing, I would encourage you to go read that. So as always, speaking of encouraging, I want to encourage you guys, particularly in today's climate with the mess that we're going to be having coming. These 2 gun control bills we talked about today are just the tip of the iceberg, folks. We absolutely need to be letting our senators know what we think. Telephone, telegraph, semaphore, radio, email, snail mail, carrier pigeon, bicycle messenger, smoke signals. Do whatever you got to do to let them know what you think, and never, ever, ever give up the fight.